My name is Jason, and I discovered the painful truth that betrayal rarely comes from enemies. It comes from those closest to you, the ones you trust without question. Throughout my life, I believed that dedication and loyalty were rewarded, that pouring yourself into your career, your marriage, your entire existence would eventually lead to fulfillment. For what seemed like forever, I thought I had everything figured out. A successful career, a gorgeous wife, a future brimming with potential. I was employed at one of the leading companies in finance, and while my colleagues departed at 5 o'clock sharp, I remained behind, pushing my limits. I wasn't merely working, I was creating a legacy. And finally, after years of commitment, everything was about to culminate in success. The company's yearly gala was the most anticipated event on the calendar. Promotions weren't delivered via email or private meetings. They were announced publicly, in front of hundreds of employees and executives. This was the moment when careers were transformed, when futures were defined. And I was among the top candidates for a significant promotion. It wasn't just about financial gain. It was about acknowledgement, about justifying all the sacrifices I had made. And Sandra, my wife, the woman who had been my foundation, was supposed to be there celebrating this milestone with me. We'd been together for years. She was my companion, my confidant. I never questioned her devotion. Not ever. At least until that fateful evening. The venue was magnificent, golden chandeliers, sophisticated tables adorned with crystal glasses, and a room filled with the company's elite. I entered feeling self-assured, my hand gently resting on Sandra's waist. This was a crucial night. A night with the potential to redefine my career trajectory. And she was there beside me, precisely where she belonged. Sandra had always attracted attention, but tonight she was stunning. A form-fitting black dress that accentuated her figure perfectly. Her hair fell in gentle waves that framed her features just right. When she smiled, people took notice. When she spoke, they were captivated. For the initial hour or so, everything seemed ideal. I introduced her to colleagues, and she captivated them effortlessly. She had always possessed a way with people, always knew exactly what to say. Then something changed. Initially, it was barely perceptible. Quick glances, just slight movements from my peripheral vision. I dismissed it initially, but then I noticed where, or rather, who she was looking at. Nathan, my superior. A man who had built his fortune from scratch. Relentless. Magnetic. The type of individual who earned respect the moment he walked into a room. He wasn't just a boss. He was the embodiment of the company. And Sandra was observing him. Not casually. Not like you might glance at someone across a crowded space. No. Her gaze lingered. And then he noticed a slow, knowing smile played at the corner of his mouth. He understood. He knew exactly the effect he had, exactly what kind of attention he was receiving. Something twisted in my gut. A gradual tightening, a feeling I couldn't quite articulate. Sandra looked away, laughing at something one of my colleagues had said. Her expression was relaxed, carefree. But moments later, her eyes darted back to him. I exhaled slowly and sipped my drink, trying to dismiss the thought. It was nothing. Or at least that's what I attempted to convince myself. I forced myself to focus on the conversation around me, nodding along. But something felt amiss, as if the atmosphere had shifted, as if I had suddenly become an observer rather than a participant. And then somehow, without me even noticing when it happened, they were together. Sandra stood next to him, talking, laughing, leaning in slightly too close. Her fingers brushed against his arm in a manner that appeared casual. Too casual. My grip tightened around my glass. The sounds of the room faded away. Music played. Conversations continued. Silverware clinked. But none of it registered. They were all I could see. Nathan tilted his head slightly, listening as she spoke. He smiled, nodding, appearing entertained. Interested. And then she did something that made my stomach drop. She reached up and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Most people wouldn't notice anything unusual about it. It was a small, almost imperceptible gesture, hardly worth mentioning. But I knew Sandra. She only did that when she was nervous or when she was flirting. My jaw clenched, and then she turned for the first time. She caught my gaze across the room, and for just a moment, just a split second, I saw it. Guilt. It flashed across her expression like lightning. Like something she didn't expect to be caught revealing. But then, just as quickly, it vanished. She smiled at me as if nothing was wrong. As if I had imagined everything. But I hadn't. Because everything was wrong. Minutes ticked by, then an hour. Sandra never left Nathan's side. I tried to engage in the conversations around me. I tried to pretend everything was fine, but my eyes kept returning to them. She laughed at his jokes. Genuine laughter. Not the polite kind she offered at work functions. Her hand touched his arm repeatedly, her fingers lightly brushing his sleeve, lingering just a moment too long. And Nathan, he wasn't just tolerating it. He was encouraging it. The way he leaned in, the way his fingers grazed the small of her back. Subtle but unmistakable. Every time I looked, I hoped I was misinterpreting, but the knot in my stomach grew tighter. Then at some point, Sandra approached me, her hand resting gently on my arm. "I need to take a call," she whispered, angling her phone just enough for me to see. No name, just a number. Something felt off. "Sure," I replied slowly. She smiled, pressed a quick kiss to my cheek, and disappeared into the crowd. I watched her go, my jaw tightening, and then 5 minutes later, Nathan left too. A chill ran down my spine. I scanned the room. They weren't at the bar. Not on the dance floor. Not outside on the balcony. And that's when I realized I hadn't seen either of them in nearly 20 minutes. My chest constricted. I set my drink down, my hands clenching into fists. I moved through the crowd, past the tables, into the quieter hallways where the noise from the event faded into a distant murmur, then a soft giggle. Not loud. Muffled. Hidden. I stopped, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then a whisper, a low, hushed voice, then a moan. I froze. The sound sent a shock through my body like electricity straight to my core. I moved toward the source. My breathing was measured, controlled. The door to a dimly lit lounge was slightly ajar. I pulled out my phone, started recording, and pushed it open. There they were. Sandra and Nathan pressed against the wall. Her hands tangled in his suit, his mouth on her neck. My blood turned ice. They froze. I didn't say a word. The camera was already rolling, capturing everything. Then I spoke. "This is my wife, Sandra. And this is my boss, Nathan. And this is them screwing around while I'm in the other room." Sandra gasped, pulling away, eyes wide with panic. "Jason." But I didn't care. Nathan raised his hands, his expression hardening. "Listen, man. This." I didn't let him finish. I slipped my phone into my pocket, and then without hesitation, I swung my fist, landing a solid punch right across his jaw. His head snapped to the side as he stumbled back, a sharp grunt escaping his lips before he could recover. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the main event hall. I shoved the doors open, stepping into the center of the crowded venue. Music played. People laughed. Conversations buzzed. And then everything stopped. The room fell into complete silence. All eyes turned toward us. And then I shouted, "You all want to know who this man is?" My voice echoed in the vast room. "He's the guy screwing my wife." A ripple of shocked gasps spread through the crowd. Sandra stood frozen in the entrance, her face pale as death. Nathan wrenched himself free from my grip, his face a mask of controlled panic. "Jason," Sandra started, her voice trembling. I turned to her. "We're done." I didn't wait for her response. I didn't need one. Without another look, without a second thought, I walked away. I drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel, my mind elsewhere as the city lights blurred past. Then my phone buzzed again and again. I didn't check. I already knew who it was. Pulling into the driveway, I stared at the house. Our house. It looked the same, but it wasn't. It was just walls now. Inside, the air felt different, like I didn't belong there anymore. I grabbed a suitcase and tossed in a few clothes. I wasn't staying. I wasn't sleeping in the same bed where Sandra had once promised me forever. Then the buzzing started again. I glanced at my phone. Sandra. 12 missed calls. I could have turned it off. Instead, I let it ring. Let her sit there knowing I wasn't picking up. Knowing she had destroyed everything. Just as I zipped up my suitcase and reached for my keys. The front door burst open. Sandra stood there, breathless, her face streaked with tears. Her makeup was smudged, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. "Jason, please, just listen to me." Her voice cracked, desperate. I scoffed, shaking my head. "There's nothing to say, Sandra." I pushed past her, heading straight for the door. She grabbed my arm, her fingers trembling. "It was a mistake. I swear it didn't mean anything. Please don't end our marriage like this." I turned to face her, laughing bitterly. "A mistake? You humiliated me in front of everyone. My friends, my colleagues. I had to find out in the worst possible way. And now you want to fix this." "I love you," she sobbed, clutching my arm as if she could somehow keep me from leaving. I yanked away from her touch like it burned. "You don't get to say that." My voice was low, steady, cold. "You had a choice, Sandra. And you made it." Her face crumbled, her hands trembling as she reached for me again. "Jason, please." We're done. I cut her off, my voice firm. I'm filing for divorce. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her legs weakened, and she let out a broken sob, shaking her head. But I didn't wait for excuses, pleas, or desperate apologies. I turned and walked out the door, her sobs trailing behind me. I drove straight to a hotel, checked in, and lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything. Sandra's shocked face in the lounge. Nathan's smirk disappearing the moment he was caught. Her desperate pleas as I walked away. None of it mattered anymore. By morning, I got up, showered, and headed straight to the best divorce lawyer I could find. I sat across from him, my jaw tight, my hands clasped together. I want a divorce, and I want to make sure she gets as little as possible. He nodded, flipping open a notepad. We'll make it happen. With the divorce in motion, I moved on to the next thing on my list. Nathan. I walked into the office building, my steps measured, controlled, ignoring the morning greetings from coworkers. I headed straight for HR. They wouldn't be looking at me the same way once this got out. Moments later, I sat across from Linda, the head of HR, and placed my phone on the desk. You're going to want to see this. I played the video. The moment Nathan's face appeared, his hands on my wife. Linda's expression darkened. She didn't say a word as the footage continued, Sandra leaning into his touch. The brief kiss that sealed her betrayal. By the time it ended, Linda let out a slow breath. Her lips pressed into a tight line. This is serious, Jason. That's not all, I said. Nathan has been abusing his position for a long time. I've heard rumors, but no one ever spoke up. Now I want this handled. And handled it was. Within hours, an internal investigation was launched. Employees, women, started coming forward with stories. Some had been pressured, others tricked with promises of promotions. By the end of the week, Nathan was fired. His career ruined, his reputation destroyed. As for Sandra, 2 days later, she got served. I didn't tell her it was coming. I didn't give her a warning. I just let the papers land in her hands, just like she had let another man's hands land on her. And then the messages started. Please don't do this. Jason, can we talk? I love you. I miss you. I stared at them, but I didn't respond. Not even once. A few days later, I drove to the house. I hadn't planned on going back, but there were still a few things I needed. Some personal items I didn't want to leave behind. As I pulled into the driveway, my grip tightened on the steering wheel. A sleek black sedan sat parked outside, a car I didn't recognize. I stepped out, my body moving before my mind could catch up. The house was eerily silent as I unlocked the door. No TV, no voices, no movement. Then a sound, faint, muffled, coming from down the hall. My heartbeat slowed, heavy in my chest. Then I heard it again. Moans from the bedroom. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight to the door and pushed it open. And there they were. Sandra and Nathan. In our bed. They both froze when they saw me. Nathan's expression went blank, like he was trying to decide whether to speak or keep his mouth shut. Sandra's eyes widened in horror as she yanked the sheets up, scrambling for cover. Jason, she breathed. She didn't look guilty. Not really. She looked caught. She had hoped to get away with it. As if I was never meant to see this. As if I wasn't supposed to find out just how little I had ever meant to her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sandra's expression hardened. What are you doing here? She asked, her tone sharp. I let out a breath of laughter. Not because it was funny. Because it was pathetic. That was her question. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can explain. No. What are you doing here? As if I was the intruder. I stared at her, at Nathan, at the bed that no longer belonged to me. Then I shook my head. I made the right choice, I muttered, and I walked away. I didn't yell. I didn't hit him. I didn't need to. This was all the confirmation I needed. Sandra had begged. She had cried. She had sworn she loved me. And 2 days later, she brought him into our home. Into our bed. That told me everything. I shut the door behind me and never looked back. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself. I moved into a small apartment. No memories. No ghosts of the past. Just a fresh start. Life became simple. Work, gym, drinks with friends who actually mattered. Nothing exciting. Nothing dramatic. But it was mine. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. Sandra didn't contest it. She got the house and a small portion of my savings, but I didn't care. Then one day, I heard something that almost made me laugh. Nathan dumped her. It didn't take long. A few months, maybe less. He got what he wanted. And when the excitement faded, he moved on. just like I knew he would. I can only imagine her face when she realized she had thrown everything away for nothing. And then, right on cue, one last message came. Jason, please, can we talk? I stared at the screen. Once, that message would have shaken me. Not anymore. I read it. I deleted it, and I moved on because some things aren't worth saving. Thank you for watching.